kueleza Wakenya.
Naam, tumsikize anachokizungumza kwa sasa.
Of our country. Disturbingly, these actions have gone on in spite of repeated assurance from the ministry and other parts of government. In the last 2 weeks in particular, because I anticipate somebody will say, what have you been doing? In the last 2 weeks, we have, and in many formations, the PS here, the regulator, have held numerous meetings with oil marketing companies and traders, both individually and collectively, to address any concerns and stress. In those meetings, we have offered firm assurances of government's full commitment to honor any obligations, and these were given repeatedly. In fact, these assurances were issued even in written format. I myself, upon listening to some of the concerns and petitions and witnessing stress across the country, have in the last week visited facilities, including our own port, where I was witness to cargo discharging, including last Friday. You will all recall that on Friday the 8th, I addressed the nation from the Kipevu oil terminal to confirm that we were secure with our supplies. That same day, the managing director of the Kenya Pipeline Company further confirmed that our storage systems were full with product. We have sufficient stock in our depots. Our schedule for incoming product is uninterrupted. We have seen, as at today, a downturn in the global pricing. And a week into addressing all these concerns with our sector players, yet we have to witness normalcy in the retail supply of fuel as we know it. Our internal distribution systems are under duress and Kenyans suffering. It is within this framework that we have decided as government that this is not an acceptable situation and that Kenyans should not be subjected to a situation that we are facing today. In fact, in my mind, this situation can only be equated to deliberate effort to sabotage this economy, which constitutes a capital crime in our statute books. I can confirm that the country has adequate stocks of petroleum and petroleum products. We have determined that some players have been holding this product, presumably and probably speculating that on this day of the month, the 14th, as you all know, price reviews will provide them with a cash windfall. This speculative behavior is not only a demonstration of bad faith, but in fact is insensitive to the mandate of the operators. Some players have additionally been diverting cargo earmarked for local use for export into the region to further enhance abnormal profits, really. There has not been even a question of increased demand on the other side. It is therefore regrettable in many ways that we are in this situation, which we had hoped would self-correct because of the measures that we have been taking. That this has not been the case, we are forced to act in order not to plunge this nation into an energy crisis. Therefore, conscious of the above context, I wish to inform as follows. One, that this government will not tolerate any entity or person that is causing distress, either by creating an artificial problem or stress. And in this regard, I wish to indicate any entity that is not ready, that is not able, that is not willing to work within the framework of the laws of Kenya is invited to vacate this market promptly. The Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, has so far issued show cause letters to those OMCs that failed to meet the required minimum operational stock levels, thus resulting in stock outs at their respective retail stations. It is noteworthy that the energy minimum operational stock regulations of 2008 require the maintenance of a specific stock requirement that guarantees the country security of supply, and therefore it is criminal offense not to maintain such stock. It has also been noted that during the stress period, some oil marketing companies and retail station operators were offering petroleum for sale at prices above the published maximum price in breach of Section 99(1)(n) of the Petroleum Act of 2019. Consequently, EPRA has issued further show cause letters to all those companies and persons, and any other person, whoever is found in breach. I can assure you that we will take stern action against those persons and entities. The Ministry of Petroleum and Mining has filed the requisite complaints with the sector regulator, Competition Authority, and we have also approached state security agencies so that we can track and assess the level of culpability, if any. Let me make it clear here and now that we are going to follow this process to its logical conclusion. Kenyans have come from tough times, experiences the consequences of COVID-19. We are all trying to recover from its ravages, and we will not accept another layer of artificial constraints placed upon us. We will therefore go the full hog to bring all persons, all entities that are in breach of their licensing and operating guidelines to book, because we will not allow any disruption to the extent we have seen to this point. To place the country back to a path of normalcy, we have instituted the following measures. One, the ministry has sanctioned a process of reallocating the petroleum import capacity. The oil marketing companies who sold above their normal local quota during the crisis period will benefit from additional capacity, while those who sold less will have their respective capacities reduced. The rationalization of the petroleum import capacity sharing is aimed at creating a healthy balance between transit and local volumes. Second, we are taking measures to privilege the movement of fuel so that we can stock up across the country. In this regard, we are going to allow the movement of tankers on a privileged basis starting later today. And we hope that we can do this in the next 72 hours to stabilize the supply across the country. The movement of the fuel will be strictly in fidelity with the approved dispatch and merit order to all oil marketing companies. In this regard, I'm also calling upon all the retailing outlets to operate on a 24-hour basis so that we do not have Kenyans waking up in the middle of the night to go and try to fuel. In this regard, we are in touch with the Ministry of Interior and have arranged for the provision of security both for the movement of the freight as well as for the retailing outlets. Later in the day, the Inspector General will provide the full details in terms of securing that entire infrastructure from the depots to the last mile. Let me touch on the question of subsidy, which seems to have been the trigger point for this so-called crisis. A critical issue of debate and disputation has been the fuel stabilization program. I can confirm that as today, the ministry is in receipt of the full outstanding balance of the money that is payable to the oil marketing companies. As at yesterday, we had dispatched upwards of 34.6 billion since the program started last year, and as I've indicated, we will continue to disburse the outstanding money once we have done with the administrative procedures. Now, this fuel stabilization framework has enabled the pump price in Kenya to remain the lowest in the region. Again, I wish to disabuse the notion that in this country we are having higher prices. That is not the case. And let me just give you some figures. At the pump price today for Kenya, our super petrol, the gazetted price is 134.72 per liter. Our neighbors, Tanzania is at 144.72, Uganda 163.20, Rwanda 154.81, further south, South Africa 172.26, Zambia 175.42. For diesel, our pump price is 115.60 per liter. For neighboring Tanzania, it is 136.34, Uganda 140.80, Rwanda 155.84, South Africa 167.27, Zambia 174.27. And this is the value of the fuel stabilization program. Even as IPRA, according to the law today, goes on in the review, in the consideration of the pricing review, I have no doubt that we shall still continue to have the cheapest pump prices across all the categories. And this because the government will continue implementing the petroleum pump price stabilization program in order to continue cushioning customers against the otherwise high pump prices. If we didn't do that, today a Kenyan would have to pay 175 Kenya shillings out of the pump. Some people have queried the essence of this program, and yet we have seen around the world that governments must intervene when there is an absolute shock, as there has been, in order to ensure both security and affordability. And this is why we are doing this as an administration. I therefore urge the oil marketing companies, the retail stations, and consumers to also play their part. May I reiterate the point I began with, that the country is sufficiently stocked with petroleum products, that our importation process and schedule has not been affected, and that in fact we have quantities that would last us up to the end of June without any issues. I therefore can confirm, even as we stand now, before some of the ships dock, we have 18 days of super petrol reserves. We have more than 20 days of diesel reserves. We have 11 days of dual-purpose kerosene in reserve. So there is no cause for panic whatsoever. That is why it is really disappointing that some actors chose self over the country and prioritized, in some cases, transit supply over local, thereby tilting the normal local to transit ratio, which should be 60 local, 40 transit. As a result, there has been the anxiety that we have witnessed, which should not take us into the Easter weekend. I urge Kenyans as well, as I did last week, to desist from making extra-normal bulk purchases of petroleum at this time. Let us await for the system to recalibrate and to normalize. Since that increased demand creates a false constraint on the infrastructure, and it leads to disruptions. There is more than sufficient supply to meet our normal demand, and there can never be enough supply to meet hoarding. Please, there can never be enough supply to meet hoarding that we have witnessed in the last few days and the anxiety. The government will not abdicate on its solemn duty to secure the nation and to bring anyone or any corporation that undermines our national interest to accountability. We must. As a medium-term intervention, because we are looking beyond this situation, we have commenced a process of ensuring that the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, NOC, assumes its rightful responsibility of taking up the right quota for strategic reserve to secure this country from hostage taking. We have seen that that is possible, and we must avoid it for the future. So I look forward to working along this path in the medium term. I reiterate that there is no need for panic, and I want to really wish every Kenyan normalcy. I believe that in the next 72 hours, we should have returned to the normal supply and demand cycle. And I want to take this opportunity as well to wish all of us good, blessed Easter holidays. And I want to believe that the red light on anyone's fuel tank will not be blinking soon. I thank you for your kind attention. I am happy to take any questions, and with me is the PS, is the regulator, is the MD NOC, and is the PS Energy. So I have my full complement here to take any questions.
Yes,
Can somebody help me to moderate?
Thank you very much. My name is Julius Mboko from NTV. Two very quick questions. First is, what is the prescribed timeline for settling subsidy arrears? And why I ask the question is because there is the pervasive view that there is misalignment between the time the government is paying ONCs and their inventory cycle, and therefore you're going into cash flow problems. Could you please give us a sense of that? Secondly, you have spoken very optimistically about the subsidy, and yet I have the CS Treasury on record indicating that going forward this is likely to be unsustainable, indicating that they could be paying upwards of 15 billion shillings every month in subsidy. If you look at the average right now, it's going to about 7 billion shillings, that's double. Could you please just clarify how you see this as sustainable in the long run?
You will take the payment schedule. Does anyone else wish to ask a question so we can take a couple?
My name is Omondi Omondi from Keep FM. And I have a question on hoarding. You've accused the private firms of hoarding petroleum products, yet the very firm that is owned by the government, National Oil, has equally been experiencing shortage when it comes to the supply of petroleum products. Is it a case of you guys speaking on both sides of the mouth? Where is the problem actually?
Okay. There's only one side. Brenda, I can't hear you.